For a 9-year-old boy we'll call Daniel, the first clear memory of the end began with his mother shaking him awake, her eyes wide with urgency. A jacket was thrown over his shoulders, stiff and cold against his skin.
"We have to leave,"
she whispered. Outside, the street was empty. No cars, no dogs, no whispers. Just wind scraping against half-built walls and broken bricks. The house behind them groaned through its half-built walls, like it knew what was coming. Daniel didn't understand why they were running. He only knew that if they stopped, something would find them. 2 years passed. 2 years of fragile peace, hiding in a small apartment his father didn't know about. But a court order dragged him back into his father's orbit every other weekend. Daniel and his younger half-brother, his father's girlfriend's son, would toss bottle caps in the rubble outside the crumbling house, once their proud, half-built family home that had promised so much, but now stood broken and silent. A pretend normalcy, while shadows behind the walls seemed to watch, almost breathing. He once heard his father's girlfriend arguing with his dad after a visit, her voice a low hiss.
"You'll never be free of her as long as he's in your life."
His father hadn't replied. Later that night, his father sat with him in the dark and asked quietly, "Does your mom? Does she ever ask about me?" The silence in the house was a quiet, creeping horror. His father seemed distant, lost in thought. His smiles, when they came, never quite reached his eyes. Daniel never felt safe there. The empty lots never felt empty. The real terror was about to begin. It was Sunday night. The evening dragged on, heavy and silent. It was time to leave, and something in the air told Daniel this weekend wouldn't end like the others. His father stood by the window, staring at the crumbling remains of their old home, his shoulders slumped as if under a heavy weight. His entire demeanor suddenly shifted. His voice, low and menacing, filled the room. "Get out! Both of you! I need a minute." She stared at him, her face a mask of shock and confusion. "Now!" he roared, a sudden explosion of rage that made the walls tremble. She visibly flinched, grabbed her son's hand without another word, and practically fled out the door. The house fell into a stillness that felt alive, waiting. The evening seemed to blur. Daniel remembered his father's hand on his shoulder, guiding him out the door. His next clear thought was that he was standing before a house he had never seen before. Inside, a woman waited, smiling in a way that was just off. She handed him a glass of chocolate milk. Sweet at first, almost comforting, but then something was off. The taste turned heavy, metallic, clinging to his tongue in a way that made his stomach twist. The room seemed to tilt, and darkness pressed in from every corner, thick and alive. If you're into these kinds of horror stories, the ones that burrow under your skin, hit subscribe and leave a like, because the next part will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Daniel woke disoriented in his father's house, chaos all around. His mother was screaming, her voice slicing through the night as she scooped him into her arms. Panic rose in his chest. His father pleaded, "Don't do this!" His control unraveled, but his words were just noise to Daniel, a chaotic sound in a world that was spinning. For years, Daniel's memories were fragments: the warm smile of a stranger, the metallic taste of chocolate milk, a frantic escape. But the full truth was more terrifying. His father hadn't just been desperate, he had been meticulous. He had drugged and hidden his own son as part of a calculated plan to force his mother's return. His girlfriend was never his accomplice. She was his unwitting smokescreen. Every argument Daniel had witnessed over his mother hadn't been a sign of her jealousy driving the conflict, but of his father meticulously building his cover. That final, terrifying outburst wasn't a man losing his mind. It was a predator clearing the room, a cold and calculated move to isolate his son for the final stage of his plan. He went to the drop-off point alone, delivering his ultimatum: "Return to me, or you will never see your son again." Then he walked away, convinced he had won. But he had forgotten his son's mother. She didn't call the police. She ran to their old house and waited. And when his father returned, she gave a warning he couldn't ignore: get her son to her, or face consequences he couldn't control. From a mother pushed to the absolute edge, it was enough. He broke. And that was the moment Daniel truly woke up, not just from the drug, but into the realization that his mother had survived, fought, and won while he had been asleep. Years later, Daniel could still feel the weight of those nights. The city streets never felt safe. The smell of chocolate milk lingered in his memory like a warning. He had survived, but survival left its scars. He wasn't just a son anymore. He was something shaped by fear, vigilance, and the quiet rage of watching a parent nearly take him away. And deep down, he knew some doors should never be opened again. Thanks for watching, and remember, some nightmares don't end when you wake up.